Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Coffee and Geography podcast. I'm really, really excited for having this person on. Not only is he inundated by people asking to speak to him, but he's got a really fantastic, thought-provoking challenge for folks out there, and a lot of people listening really do like thinking about critical thinking and challenges like that. Will Duffy, all the way from Colorado. It is absolutely lovely to have you on the show. How you doing?
Doing great. Thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, so Will is a pastor in a small town in Colorado, and he is the what do we call? We call you the creator, the man behind the experiment, which is called the Final Experiment. Which is I'm so intrigued in this in so many ways, but we'll get onto that. We'll definitely get onto that. We'll a big proportion of this. So as I here, Will, Colorado is 7 hours behind here in the United Kingdom, so I don't usually drink a glass of wine while I'm doing a podcast chat, but it is, coming up to 8:45 at night. So, if we were in a coffee house or something like that, what would you usually grab? What would you usually order over the counter?
Yeah, so I'm definitely a little boring in that regard. I don't drink coffee. I don't drink tea. I don't drink alcohol. Either a water or a sparkling water if I'm feeling a little on the edge.
No, that's great. And there's been plenty of people come on and say, Kit, in fact, I don't know why they always preface, I'm boring, I just drink water. I'm like, 70% of our body is made of water. Water is life. Like, that's not boring at all. That is essence.
Yeah, great point.
So I would never apologize for being a water drinker, Will, and it's something I always tell myself I should do more of. And it's not often I grab a glass of wine at this time, to be honest. Right. So as we mentioned, you're in the beautiful state of Colorado, a state I know very, very well. I've got strong family and friendship and even work links there. So the question I always like to ask people, Will, when they come on the podcast is about their spatial identities. So, based on where you live today, you can tell us if you've lived in Colorado all your life, or you've moved around the United States, or even around the world. But Will Duffy today, and how you feel about your identity and yourself today, how has where you've lived and where you are kind of like formed the essence of your identity? So your spatial identity.
Yeah, so was born in Colorado, and being born in Colorado, you learn to enjoy the mountains, you learn to enjoy camping. There's a lot of people that just despise camping, right? they
Right. Yeah.
if For them, camping's like being in a hotel or something. But yeah, you enjoy camping, you enjoy the outdoors, you actually enjoy snow.
Mm.
I've met a lot of people who, grow up in a more warmer climate, and when they come to Colorado, they're just like freezing cold when we're outside and in a short sleeve shirt. For a while, I did move to Puerto Rico, and so got to live on a Caribbean island for quite a few years and live right on the ocean. And that really gave me a love for the ocean, for marine life. So now I'm a big snorkeler. I do some free diving. And every year I look for whales during their migration season.
Oh
So,
wow. That's crazy. That's I love that. So with your free diving, then I mean, it's probably not about records or staying underneath for as long as. But what about what do you get to? Have you timed yourself as like I can do a good 3 minute, because I can't last 30 seconds, me. But
yeah. So for me, I only took a level one freediving class to become a better snorkeler,
okay.
so that I could learn the safety rules, learn properly how to dive down. So I don't time myself. I'm not looking to set records. The people that do that are amazing athletes, but I'm not interested in taking those risks and having blackouts before you get to the surface and having to be rescued and all that crazy stuff.
I can see the freedom and the liberty of it, though. I mean, I've been snorkeling, but I've never been diving, and I know my parents have been lucky enough to kind of like do that when they've been on holiday, and I've always been jealous and envy of this. But then I thought, no, like when I watch documentaries, like, because over here you're probably aware we've got these big famous BBC documentaries, Planet Earth, and
Oh yeah.
narrated by David Attenborough. I think you folks have it narrated by Sigourney Weaver, I think, but well, mate, I don't know if it's David Attenborough over there, but and then you see the Human Planet series was amazing when you had the free dive, the people who live on the ocean, on the sea, and they're the free and they free dive, and they can hold their breath for something like 10 minutes or so, or just because it's in their almost in their genetics as well as their like indigenous knowledge, the way that they've learned to do that, and that's just a fascinating. And I'm just like, that is just so freeing. There's a freedom to it. I don't know. How do you, when you go and do this kind of stuff, how does it make you feel?
Yeah, it's great. I wish I could do what they do. They train, they do a lot of breathing exercises. They learn how to really
Mm,
fill up their lungs. They also learn how to control their movement because movement takes, you're moving your muscles, which takes oxygen. And so, yeah, it's really neat. It's neat to be in a foreign environment, meaning underwater, where you really don't belong, And so I imagine if we could ever get into the mind of a fish, they would wonder, hey, what would it be like to spend extended periods of time in outside of the water?
right.
And it would be neat if they could without dying. And so that's kind of what it is for us. We get to spend an extended period of time underwater without all the heavy scuba gear.
Right, exactly. Um, and also, you've provided us with a fantastic segue, Will, because I think we should move on to the main topic, which is amazing. So the segue is that you mentioned about whales, and I was invited, and it blew my mind really, but I was invited once by an ex-professor of mine to apply for a PhD to study seal migration patterns around the continent of Antarctica. And I went for it. I applied for it. I was like, I said to Kara, I said, why are you asking me? I'm a at the time I was a high school teacher. I hadn't even done a master's, right? But I'd done a lot of stuff through Antarctica. I taught about Antarctica and things like that through as a high school teacher. And like she saw the work that I was doing and how I talked about it. It's like, you should do it. You're also a graduate of our university. You'd be well, and that was amazing. So I applied for it. I didn't get it. It was went to a student who had already like started the research. Fair enough. Fair enough. Why would you pay someone like me who's been out of academia for a few years? But of course, Antarctica has always been a continent that has fascinated me. Absolutely fascinated me. And I'm as envious as anything that one of my best friends in the world, I'll mention his name, Dan Beeden, works for the British Antarctic Survey as their air operations coordinator. So he's the person who makes sure that the planes go, that their twin otter science planes get to the right place and they pick up the equipment at the right place and they fuel in. I'm like, and he gets to go to Antarctica and he's a photographer as well, an amateur photographer. I'm just like, I have words for I love you, Dan, but I have words, right? Um, so Antarctica, yeah, and so I came across, and I'm one of these people who does watch YouTube when I've got a spare moment. When I'm washing the dishes, I put my phone on the counter and I just watch some YouTube channels. And I admit they do cycle through things like Simon Dan, Dave McKeegan, um, FTFE, and these are YouTubers who do a lot of science stuff, but mostly they talk about anti-flat Earth stuff, like debunking flat Earth. And then I came across your channel, came up as like the play next list. So yeah, I want everyone, and it fascinates me. Now I'm going to stop talking because I'd like you to tell us the final experiment. What is it about? And why did you sit down one day? And I know you talked about this on your video, but it'd be great for you to talk to us about it. And you thought, I've got an idea. I'm going to do this.
Yeah, so it was about 2.5 years ago. I was exposed to a friend of mine on Facebook talking about flat Earth, which was confusing to me because I didn't think it was a thing. I thought it was a joke. And engaging with her and reading the comments, she was genuine about this, and so that began my dive into this whole flat Earth thing. And I learned that flat Earth is alive and well. It's actually growing, and more people in countries all over the world are starting to accept this idea that we live on a flat Earth and not a globe. And so I just quickly, you just get inundated with these videos and you kind of just get sucked in the articles and going back and forth with people. And so it was good. I learned a lot. I'm actually very grateful that I went through all of that because you do learn a lot. If you're challenged with something that you don't know the answer to, you got to go research it and you got to go figure it out. Or if someone says something you've never heard of, you need to like, okay, what are they talking about so that I can have a a conversation with them. And I'm a bit of a visionary. I'm a big thinker. I like to come up with crazy ideas that people say can't be done or are impossible. That's kind of my cue to begin. And so I was like, okay, I think I want to figure out if there's a way, and I want to do it. I want to figure out a way to settle the debate so that both sides are happy. Both sides are like, yep, the debate's settled. And I came up with the final experiment. And everything took me to the Southern Hemisphere. And that's because the Southern Hemisphere on the flat Earth map is wildly different from the globe, wildly different. The size, the shape of land masses. And the biggest difference is going to be Antarctica. And so this picture right here, or right up here,
Yeah.
right there, is what Antarctica looks like on the flat Earth map versus the globe. The size is wildly different. And so on the globe, we say Antarctica is a continent and it resembles an island because it's got water all the way around it. And we would say it's at the bottom of the globe. That's how we, position our globes. And so on the flat Earth map, they say, no, it's actually an ice wall that surrounds the entire world. It surrounds all of the known continents, all of the known land masses, and they believe it also holds the water in because they believe it's flat. And if we didn't have the ice wall, the water would escape essentially and fall off the edge or just go elsewhere. So Antarctica, I didn't know much about Antarctica. It's a super fascinating place, as you said, but I did learn something interesting, which is that on the globe model, in the southern summer, which is, November, December, January, on the globe model, the sun never sets if you get far enough south. And on the flat Earth model, that's an impossibility. And so I figured this out because both sides talk about it. So the flat Earth side would say you can't have a 24-hour sun on a flat Earth. The globe model would say there is a 24-hour sun. And so there's the debate. And there's videos of a 24-hour sun. There's eyewitness testimony of a 24-hour sun. But then you've got people who say the videos are edited. And then you have people who say, well, we have our eyewitness person who's been there and says there's not. And so it's just typical of a debate. And so I said, okay, why don't we just go to Antarctica, right? Thousands of people visit Antarctica every single year. And so the final experiment is I am going to be paying for one flat earther and one globe earther to fly to Antarctica and to see with our own eyes whether or not there's a 24-hour sun. And that's the experiment. It's interesting. When I created this, I thought both sides would be super excited about it. And ever since I've said what it is, the flat Earth side is attacking me and telling me that this is not a good experiment. They don't seem too excited. The globe side is very excited, but we're still moving forward regardless.
Yeah. And I really strongly encourage everybody. I love the way you build it up. So you had those kind of like you did those videos kind of like setting up the history of it and like what people are saying on either side, and actually playing videos of them saying things, flat earth, plenty of them flat earthers saying, I would go to Antarctica, and saying that the 24-hour sun would be impossible, so you've got that all documented. And what I love about what you've done, and a large audience of this podcast I started this up because I wanted to talk to fellow geography teachers during COVID, right? So I was lonely. So I know that a large of my listenership are educators, geography teachers, and one of the things we always try to promote is critical thinking. And so when I watched your videos about the way that you layered them, I really loved them. Sort of like you were really going down this almost, it was a scientific approach, like almost a social science approach. I loved it. And then you said, and then you came to the conclusion that the only way we can solve this, in other words, the final experiment, is to go and see or not see that 24-hour sun, because every other thing will be called as fake, CGI, or like I've got 3 friends who've been to Antarctica, and my friend who works at the British Antarctic Survey, right, who all have testified themselves that they've seen the 24-hour sun, right? But me saying that here, and if any flat earthers are watching, hi, thanks for watching. Nice Mushy Beer, come on my podcast. They are not going to take that testimony from me or my friends as proof. Fair enough, because they're not seeing it for themselves. Okay.
Right.
So I'm like, so I kind of like the way you've gone about this. And for an educator's point of view, we try to teach our children as a critical thinking point of view. And the other thing I thought about when I looked at it is two things. The first thing is I've got young children. So I've got, I don't know, you've got children yourself. I've got a 7-year-old and a 9-year-old. And they're at that period of curiosity where they're kind of moving from seeing is believing to, well, there are things in the universe and what we can't see or can't explain, and that is okay. But we know that they exist, right? So, I give every parent, and I think probably you will go, oh yeah, we'll understand this. You say, right, dinner's ready, go wash your hands, and they go, done. Like, no, you gotta get some soap. But my hands are clean. No, there are probably still microbes on your hands. There's still bacteria on your hands. Wash them properly in between your fingers. Do your fun. Well, it comes. My hands are clean. I'm like, so, and I'm like, yeah, but there are things you can't see. So our kids do it. Yeah, I can't see it. Our hands look clean. They must be clean, right? Well, we know that can't always be true. And I love those UV light experiments and things like that where they say, oh, there's bugs everywhere. And then the second thing is, as someone who works with climate scientists, as a climate science educator, there is so much to do with climate science where you can't see it. Carbon dioxide, for example, is invisible to the human eye. So there is so much, and you can tell I'm segueing now into the next bit coming on. Faith needed in science, because there are things that you can test which you can't see to prove, but there's still that human inclination is that if I can't see it, I can't believe it. So that's what I love about the final experiment, is that it is the one thing that can be tested on both sides, that match up, where you can use your eyes and you can
Yeah.
experience it yourself. People say, Kit, send flat earthers into space. No, they're not. It's not going to work, because they might think that the viewing portal is fake. It might be a video script, so that's not going to work, right?
Yeah.
Well, you've come to, by process of deduction, research, critical thinking, you have found out we've got this argument, this is where they meet in the middle. And that, to me, is good science. So I have to applaud you there, Will. But you're putting your own money on this as well. So that's another step.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, I really did want something that we could collaborate on, that we could do together. In all the different experiments that have been done, I watched them carefully. I looked at, what the reactions were, how they were performed, how they were conducted. And there was just always the problems, right? They were doing them on their own, both sides. And so the flat earth side would do an experiment and the globe would say, well, we don't know if you did this right or that right. And the globe side would do an argument, and the flat earth side would say, well, we don't know what you did, or we think you lied, or we think you manipulated the data. And so it's like, okay, we're going to do this one together. And then let's do something that's going to be, that's not going to be questionable, right? Either the sun's in the sky or it's not. And so, it's not something that we're going to be able to manipulate. And so that's really how I came up with it. And I'm very, very excited about it.
Yeah. And it's a social experiment as well, because you say in your videos that, well, if one side changes the goalposts, then that's not a failure of the experiment. That is actually part of the experiment. And so you've brought all these elements in of physical sciences and social sciences together. And, well, look, I know you're not in, but if you don't co-write a paper on this once you've done it, I think you're missing a trick here. I think this is absolutely brilliant. So, for my personal, I would love to go to Antarctica. I would absolutely get on that plane and join you. It's a combination. I mean, like a few others that you've offered, it is a combination of family commitments and money. Otherwise, I'd be on that plane for sure. And you know what? As someone who loves planet Earth, it doesn't matter if I see the sun go around the sky 24 hours, which is what I believe through my science background and whatnot. Fine. I haven't seen it for myself. I'd love to see it for myself. So, or not, or it doesn't do it. I'd be like, huh, I've learned something new. And
Yeah.
it kind of doesn't fit in with how the climatic system works, but hey, this is something interesting, and then I can open a new field of science on it. So for me, it'd be a win-win. But as I say, I've got 2 young kids, and I don't think missing, close towards Christmas is going to go down well with my family. But you know what? I'm let's just say I'm 0.1% chance of me going, so it's not an impossibility. I'll look into it. I'll look into it. All right, but don't count me in.
Hey, as long, as
um,
long as you're considering it, I'm happy.
Yeah, yeah, I know, and I've said time and time again, I'd love to go. I've even spoke to my friend. I said, "Can you have any civilians on your British Antarctic, you know, trips every now and then?" He said, well, it comes down, it doesn't quite work that way. You got to do your risk assessments, all this kind. You got to be trained. I was like, "Oh, okay, I should have got that PhD then, shouldn't I?" Yeah. So, but what fascinates about me is that both sides want to seek the truth, right? And from my perspective, and everybody will have their own perspective on this, right? So if I now take almost the scientist out of me away and bring in kind of like almost like the perception, the bias, I'm going to bring my bias in deliberately now, something I try to avoid, something I try to look at, expose and avoid. But to me, it seems like you got one side who's basing their arguments on science, and the other side, which really bases, compared to the science I know and the science community I know, basing their kind of arguments on faith and belief, right? However, I had a wonderful professor when I was doing environmental science in Norwich at the University of East Anglia, called Professor Mike Hume. And Mike Hume was a climate scientist, a very well-respected climate scientist, but a very devout Christian as well. And he did a lot of work about how the two actually marry up and match. That they shouldn't be in conflict with each other. They should be together. And like he said, he says, I'm just going to read out this quote here in one of his essays, which talks about this climate change and the significance of religion. He says that merely understanding climate science or dealing with it through a frame of technology is clearly insufficient. Religious engagement with climate change is both necessary and inevitable. But there's much to discover about how religious beliefs, institutions, and practices around the world engage with the idea of climate change and to what effect, thereby offering rich research agendas in which religious scholars and others may profitably engage. And then when I think about what he says, I'm very, very committed to indigenous voice and things like that. And then when you think of indigenous stewardship of the planet and of the world, there is a lot of solutions to problems like climate change in there. So there's a link between religion and science. So from your perspective, Will, I mean, I don't know if you've ever done if you've done sermons or talked about how science and religion marries up, but I think the final experiment is a really good example of that. But from you personally, can you comment or give an account of where science and religion is just that meme where you've got that handshake, science, religion. Have you ever had that before? Or can you speak to that from your own
Yeah,
opinion?
yeah, I can speak to it. I don't know if I've spoken to it much in the past, but so as someone who believes in God, as a Christian, science to me is the discovery of the world that God created. And so that's that's kind of the paradigm that I'm coming from. I look at it as, okay, I believe the world, the universe is designed, and so let's figure out, let's get into the mind of the designer, if you will. And so I do look at it through that lens, and it's definitely not. I definitely don't consider it at odds. There's a lot of people in the flat Earth movement that will put, the fact that we live on a globe at odds with religion. They'll put, the fact that we have a heliocentric universe at odds with religion. And I just think they're taking it way too far. And there's definitely no need for that.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I mean, because science can be for the unanswered questions that science at the moment may even never be able to answer. You have to have faith to fill the void, right? I mean, that's how science for me, that's how science kicks off. It's having belief, having faith, because where do your hypotheses come from? Where does your inspiration come? Where does your muse come from? So for me, even though I mean I was raised Christian, but atheist now. So even though I'm an atheist, that to me is fine. I'm fine with that. That there has got to be some faith and religion involved, and I people know listen to podcasts well. I'm also a massive Star Trek fan, and the latest season of Star Trek Discovery, for example, has had this really fantastic subplot about how one of the characters has starts questioning their faith, even though it's a program set in the far future where science is king and things like that. But they have this. I wouldn't say it's a crisis of faith. It's not, because he embraces it, he takes it on, and actually it becomes a spoilers, everybody, if not seen it, but it comes like a major plot point towards the end of the season, right? So, and I thought they did that perfectly. So to me, I'm very much of the case of they work really, really well together. And I've met far more people who say things like, I'm a Christian, I believe in God, or, I believe I'm Hindu, I believe what I believe, I'm whatever religion they are. But the vast majority I've spoken to don't seem to have a problem with the scientific method and the scientific thing. So if science can help me to understand how God or my gods work, doesn't that enrich my experience? You know.
Absolutely, it does.
So, and this is why I'm a big proponent of Star Trek, where they know infinite combinations and infinite diversity and infinite combinations. And to me, religion's part of that. So
Yeah, absolutely, it would be. Yeah, I like that.
yeah. All right, I want you to talk about one reason why we've got. I mean, it's because you've got a fantastic background. That's the reason why we're doing a special video as well as an audio here, folks. So if you're listening to this on the podcast as you usually do, I don't usually do a video, but if you go on my YouTube channel, you'll actually see me and Will having a chat. And Will wants to show us everything. So on your sleeves, Will, you've got some geography related cufflinks. So go on, show them off and tell us what you got on your wrists.
Yeah. So, what's helped me the most learn world geography is actually travel.
Hmm.
You can look at maps all day, you can look at globes all day, you can look at pictures and books all day. But once you actually visit a place, it just sticks with you. You understand it better.
Yeah.
And so when I started doing, world traveling, leaving the United States, I wanted a souvenir to remember the places that I've traveled. And so the souvenir that I get is I take currency from the country that I visit, and I have the currency made into cufflinks.
That is so cool.
And so, yeah, so what's cool is the guy that does this for me, he actually will paint the currency to make it pretty, and then he makes it into a cufflink. So I think you will probably recognize the ones that I'm wearing today.
Oh, let's have a look. Oh, okay. Oh, yeah. That's ours.
So that is a real British pound. That's
That's
that's in there.
amazing. Yeah. Well, I've never seen. Obviously, they're just plated one color. So I've not. But now, when I recognize that instantly, because I've seen that coat of arms, if you like, so many actually painted. So he's got the colors right as well, like kind of the red and the blue, the dark, really deep blue, and the gold
Yeah,
lions and things.
yeah, he does really great work. And so anyway, every time I put on a pair of cufflinks, it reminds me of a place that I've traveled. And so this particular trip was I went to Oxford,
Cool.
and I was actually doing a research project. And so I went to Oxford. They have a library there called the Bodleian Library. And inside the Bodleian Library, I had to go to the, antiquities section for this particular book. And the book that I was researching was actually a Bible from 1602.
Wow.
And it was called the Bishop's Bible. So this Bible actually predates the King James Bible, which everybody's familiar with. So
That's
anyway,
awesome.
yeah, it's fun. My cufflinks tell a story, and they tell a geographic story as to where I've been in my world travels throughout my life.
Well, that's so you wear part of your spatial identity on your wrists. That's
That's
pretty
right.
cool.
That's right.
Yeah. Yeah, and I 100%. I don't think there's anyone listening who would disagree with you about how travel can really give you such an immense view of not just other places around the world, but of yourself as well. I mean, I was lucky enough to do a teacher exchange in Malawi. I've been to South Africa. I've been to all over the place, the United States, which is a very diverse country in itself. There's really not one state that's very similar to another, and yeah, I am not the same person. I don't think I'd be the same person today as if I didn't do all that traveling. And I've got very strong links now with places like Malawi and Southeast Asia. I've not been to Southeast Asia, but the people I've met from that place, meeting people from those areas as well. So I'm quite, yeah. I don't wear shirts or anything like that, but I'm quite envious of your cufflinks, I must admit.
Yeah, it's fun. And again, you've been to Colorado as well, so that even
Yeah,
connects us a little bit.
yeah, yeah. So I'm actually heading back there. I don't fly too much because I try to keep my carbon footprint down. But I will be actually there in end of October, beginning of November this year to visit family and friends. So because we haven't seen my kids haven't seen their auntie for a very long time, so that's why we're going.
Exciting.
Yeah, looking forward to look to see those flat irons again, particularly. Oh, just watching the sun hit those first thing in the morning. It was just
Yeah.
took my breath away every time. Every
Yeah,
time.
they're beautiful.
I got one more question for you, Will, and this is you can take this however you want. So another segment we do is spill the beans, where the guest kind of like comes up with tells us something which is quite quirky and fun about them, which not everybody might know. So basically, a chance for you to kind of like have a little bit of humor and make the fun out of yourself for a bit. So is there anything quirky about Will Duffy that like one previous guest 2 episodes ago talked about how they can dance with their ears, which was like,
Hmm.
what about you? You got any quirks or a bit of spilling the beans for us?
Yes, I do. This one usually, catches people off guard. They usually think I'm joking, but I'm not. 4.5 years ago, I gave up vegetables. And so
Okay.
I stopped eating vegetables. And I've never looked back. So,
Right. Okay. No, no, no. You can't leave us hanging on that, Will. How did that come about, and how's that going for you?
yeah. So I've had health issues throughout my life. I've been on this never ending health journey, just trying to figure out why I have certain symptoms and all these different things. And I've tried all these crazy diets and supplements and procedures and all this kind of stuff. And one day I, stumbled on this diet that kind of the number one rule of it is no vegetables. And I thought, well, that's strange. And I found out, I pretty much wrote it off. But then I found out that Jordan Peterson's daughter was on it, and that she had she had significant success with it. And I was like, okay, I consider Jordan Peterson a wise person. He also seems like he's very wealthy, and so I don't think he would take a risk with his own daughter. And so that led me down this path of eliminating vegetables and mainly focusing on animal products for my diet, and it's done wonders for me. So you're
Okay.
seeing me 50 pounds lighter than I was at the beginning. So
That's fascinating. I wish we had more time to dive into that, really, because there's there's so many things to unpick on there. There's like the okay, what is your go-to kind of meat, your plate? I mean, are you kind of like a steak? Oh, it's got to be a steak, or is it the white meats, or is it? Or yeah, I mean, what is the balance of your diet if it's quite heavy on the animal products? That's just fascinating.
yeah, so I'm at about, I'd say 85% beef, and then about 10% pork, and then about 5% lamb. So
Okay. So yeah, I think we were so for me it's 0% beef. I usually count it on the carbon. So it's 0% beef. I think maybe 5% chicken, 5% lamb, and then the rest is vegetable vegan stuff. So yeah, I mean it's personal preference, personal choice, also medical as well.
yeah,
And
yeah,
that's a lot. I think in these debates there is a lot of. I mean, I've obviously always had, through science, I'd advocate for a low meat consumption. But then again, when you step back and think about it, it's like, but there are some people out there who have got a dietary requirements which may be heavy on meat because that's what their body needs or their body requires. So when it comes to climate action, things like that, I don't say we should give up meat. I say, right, what is what are you capable of doing and what are you willing of doing? So if you're not capable of giving up meat, because actually it's one of the few ways you can get iron and one of the few ways that your body can get protein, then who am I to turn around and say you should give up meat for the sake of the environment, right? So, so I don't, I don't see a planet where everyone has to give up meat. I see a planet of those who can, should if they can, but those who can't, they will find a way around that and offset other ways. So, but yeah, you're the first person I've come across that's like, no vegetables whatsoever. Have you ever been tempted? Like, oh, I really do miss. You're never going to say I miss a Brussels sprout. You're never going to say that, right? But has there been any time when you kind of like miss? Oh, I could just do with a jacket potato or something.
No, no. The things that I miss, which I think are just horrible for me, would be the sugar and the fried foods.
Right? Yeah, yeah. And that is
My
true. Yeah,
my wife loves her salads, and I don't think she thought I would stick with this, but she tells people, she's like, you know what? He feels great. He's sticks with it, and so more power to him.
yeah. And if, as I say, if it's what your body needs to keep you fit and healthy, then who is everybody else to say that you can't do that? So, fair play, Will. Right. We'll bring this conversation towards an end now. So it's been such a fascinating chat. Thank you so much. So to end with, we're going to do We Are All Geographers, where we're going to daisy chain all of our guests together with regards to a single word or a phrase or something like that. So the last guest I had on, as I mentioned before, with the dancing ears, is someone called Ada. Ada is from Uganda, and she was given the word cats by a previous. She gave a really good response about how cats are seen as demon or demon possessors in Ugandan culture, which is quite fascinating. And she wanted to address the ban. She said, "Okay, my word I'm going to want to give to the following guest is dogs."
Hmm.
So, Will, you got 30 seconds. I mean, I don't know if you got dogs yourself or you got any opinion on dogs, or maybe you're a cat person. I don't know. But you've got 30 seconds to talk about dogs. So when you're ready, I'll start the timer and you just riff about dogs for 30 seconds.
Okay, I'm ready.
Go for it.
So yes, dogs. I'm a dog person. Not sure why. Always have been. We grew up with dogs, and they just they're friendly. They're called a man's best friend. They will protect you, comfort you. They'll bark if they feel like something's wrong. And I've actually rescued 2 dogs. And I would say this: rescue dogs, in my opinion, are by far the best. They're the most loyal, and I love them.
Oh, yeah, I'm a dog person. I admit. My dad is a retired police officer and he used to work in the dog unit, but the dog that we had was not just his partner, was also our family dog as well. It was a lovely, beautiful Alsatian called Ben, and he was a member of the family as well. And I grew up with him. We got Ben as a puppy when I was a baby, and so I grew up with him. And so yeah, and I've forever well, my dad I know misses him terribly. Yeah, he was a
Yeah.
member of the family. And I know we're not, I know it's difficult about humanizing animals and things like that, but with dogs, I feel you can't help it. Whereas with cats, I think it's a bit easier to not humanize them because they want to like control us like puppets. I don't know. But dogs seem a
Yeah.
little bit more
Very different
companionable.
personalities. Very different personalities.
Absolutely. Right. So it's your turn now. We ought to come up with a word, and it can be something regarding what we talked about or something of your choice. So, what are you going to go for our next guest?
Well, I mean, we're going to Antarctica, and that's a continent full of ice. So let's do ice.
Ice it is. Yep. Very, very. I almost did the pun. I'm going to say it. I was going to say that's a cool word. And I just said it. Oh, my ex students would tell you I was terrible with my puns. I'm not going to subject you to that, Will. Uh, okay, Will. So, last two things then. One, do you have anyone you'd like to give a shout out to? And the second thing is for people to get in contact with you or find out more about the final experiment, where can they find that?
Yeah, I think some people in your audience might be excited to know that Dave McKeegan is going to be going to Antarctica for the final experiment. He's going to be representing the globe side. We're
Shout out to
still
Dave.
looking for someone on the flat Earth side to go and represent them. I know Dave McKeegan probably has a big following out there in the UK. And yeah, our website is a good place to start. It's thefinalexperiment.com with hyphens between each word. So the-final-experiment.com. Super easy to find us on YouTube. If you just search for The Final Experiment, we come right up. We post videos of updates. Our website keeps a scoreboard of how many participants from the globe side and the flat earth side have actually participated in the experiment, which is super easy. You don't even have to go to Antarctica to participate. You can interview me or make a suggestion, which will make the experiment better to get on the scoreboard if you're one of the official invited participants. So yeah, check us out. And if you have any ideas, let us know.
Oh, that's brilliant. Right. Okay, folks, geography teacher colleagues, right? Or students listening. If you've got a suggestion for Will to tweak the experiment, whatever, there you go, right? Get in contact with Will. Tell him that you heard him from Coffee and Geography, say through Talk to Kit. Give me suggestions. Teachers, we know we're winding down for the year. We're winding down now for the end of the academic year, right? If you're thinking of something to do to tie things to the end of the year, get them to think about this for a few minutes. Get some critical, get them to say, right, let's come up with something we can ask Will to do. Send it to Will or send it to me and I'll pass it on to Will, right? There you go. Hopefully you'll get something, at least one thing coming through, we'll see. We'll see. Yeah, and you've been such an amazing guest, Will. This has been so fascinating, and I think it's good luck with everything. I mean, I'll definitely be keeping track of everything. And yeah, I mean, I don't know if any flat earthers listening to me at all, but we're all in the game for the search of truth, right? So my personal plea to you folks is we're all in it for search of truth. If we strip everything away and go on that basis, don't pass up a trip to Antarctica. Come on. Come on. I mean, I can't take your place because I suppose I'd be Team Globe, right? So I can't take your place for you. I would, but that's not part of the final experiment. We can't do that. So do consider going. Will, I've loved this chat. Thank you so much for giving up your time. I do hope you give yourself a bit of a breather and a bit of a time to take stock and have time for yourself amongst all this craziness. But yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I really enjoyed it.